Wonderful. So we haven't officially met. So I guess, Andrea, if you want to, I don't know how much you've discussed with Brent already, but you can maybe start with the introductions.
Yeah, so nice to put a name to the face and face to the name. So let me introduce to you, this is Linda. So Linda's actually in Belize right now, and she's been there since, I think it was September.
December, but that's okay.
December, okay. Yeah. So she did a bunch of research, and mutual friends introduced us. So when my friend knew that I was going down to Belize, she hooked me up with Linda, who happened to already be investing in the same development I was looking at. So we hit it off right away. She's from Edmonton, and she owns a bunch of real estate in the Edmonton area as well. So she's an accountant. Yeah, she's an accountant by trade. So she's been working from Belize for her employer in Alberta. And she's still there. So there must be something good to it.
Yes, thank you. All right, so I'll just get in a little bit into the opportunity and obviously, Brent, any questions you have as we go through, feel free to ask, and obviously at the end as well. So just to talk a little bit about myself in a little bit more detail, I have been investing in real estate since 2006, and I started in short-term rentals in 2017, and that's all in the Edmonton market. So I bought and sold many different properties just because the market, actually, I have an offer coming today on one house with a garden suite. So that's what I focus on, is 2 suites per lot, typically, like a house where I have a long-term tenant and then a tiny home or a garden suite in the back. And that's just the best way to cash flow real estate in the Edmonton market. And I found out about Belize actually through the Real Estate Guys radio podcast, because one of my friends that invests in Airbnbs in Canmore, she said, if you're thinking of international investing, you got to listen to these podcasts. So I started listening to them, and they have a whole bunch of podcasts and things like that, and also educational sessions. So they had said they had Belize discovery tours, but I ended up buying before that, and I bought tons of books on Belize. I read all the books I could find, one called Easy Belize, one from Will Mitchell, who's a Remax realtor here. And then I came here in December because I had bought property and I was building in Mahogany Bay Village. And then I got here in December and I was like, oh, this is a really good place. And I like my builder and everything's going well. And then I attended the Belize Discovery Tour because Robert came in late January. So when I was already here, I got the announcement, hey, Robert Helms is coming for his Belize Discovery Tour. And that's kind of what opened my eyes way more than even being on the island. I still had, I would say, not knowledge about everything that goes on here. So this tour was like a huge eye opener for me. So why did I pick Belize? I mean, I listened a lot to those podcasts, and that's how I got into the Belize market. But some of the key things is there's easy access from the US and Canada. So it's only 2 hours from Houston, a bit more from Miami. And there's been huge tourism increases. The first hotel brand, the Hilton, just came in 2017, and there's more direct flights every year. And generally, we can fly right from Calgary, Alberta to Belize City from November to April, although this season they canceled it all, which good for me in a sense because I'm here and I'm kind of stuck here, which I'm happy about. So that's kind of nice. Of course, for me, one of the big things is the fact it's English speaking as well, because when you're doing real estate, I like to be able to read the contracts versus Mexico, where I travel a lot. I really always wanted to buy property in Mexico. And then when I found Belize, I was like, wait, Belize is like right by Mexico. It's actually a bit warmer and it's in English. So that was kind of a big thing for me. Other thing is freehold title. So in lots of countries, they have squatters' rights, which is a bit scary. Whereas here, it's based on English common law, because this used to be obviously a British country. So we have kind of the same rights as we do, say, in Canada or the US. And Ambergris Caye specifically, why I came here, is the number of tourists, and that's generally because it has the second largest barrier reef in the world. So looking at AirDNA and seeing how many tourists come here from the Airbnb market, that was one of the key things. And there are a huge number of expats here as well, which I found from being here. I mean, I have lots of friends that live here as I've been living here for a period of time. So in terms of being in Belize as an investor, I did buy in Mahogany Bay Village. And when I had first bought, I literally I had watched every single YouTube video I could find from different realtors, found, okay, there's Secret Beach, there's Mahogany Bay, there's North. And that was pretty much all I heard from every realtor that I had heard online. And so then I called a realtor that was from Calgary because I'm from Edmonton. I thought, this is great. I can deal with a RE/MAX agent right from my own market. So I bought this land in Mahogany Bay Village. And I mean, they said, oh, we have a great rental pool in place and that kind of thing. It's a gated community, so that's fine. But I've now realized there's tons of other viable options available. And the reason that I found this is it's very difficult to know what property is available because there is no true MLS system. So there's a lot of companies that have went out and said Belize MLS in their title so that you think it's MLS. It is not at all. And you'll see certain realtors list on certain sites and certain don't. And realtors often show only their own listings. And this is the problem that I had, is they don't want to share commission and they don't need to disclose that because there's no licensing process here. So I've met some realtors here that are like, oh yeah, I have my partner or this person at another firm has a listing, but that's not the majority of realtors that I've met here. Most of them are like, here's what I have available. And it's basically their own listings. And since they don't have to tell you, you just don't know. So most things here also do work through referrals. So before I do anything like building furniture or buying anything, I talk to a lot of different people and make sure I get the same answer, because you can find someone will say someone's great and then you talk to someone else and you get a completely different answer. And one thing Robert Helms says, because I've met with him lots of times because he comes back and forth all the time, is he's like, I can't even give you a referral list of people because people start out good and then they get too busy and we refer them and then they're not good anymore. So that's one of the weird things about the market here, is that a lot of problems happen because people, I guess, get too busy, or a lot of people move here and they, I don't know, get into the island mentality and they don't show up as much. So that can happen a lot. So many people say you need to be here to find the deals, because a lot of times you just go around. For example, I was at the bar one night and I met this young guy and he said he was from Corozal. He's the bartender at a bar and he's like, oh, you went to Corozal? He's like, I have a piece of land in Consejo Shores. I can sell you for 20 grand. And this is literally what happens all the time. People are like, oh, I have land to sell, and it's not listed anywhere. So you never really know what's out there. So a little other thing about where I bought in Mahogany Bay Village, it's great in terms of having requirements, you know, kind of what kind of plans they will have in the neighborhood because there's approved builders. But in my case, the only thing I'm a little bit uncertain about is they don't have right now a pool or a beach club. And I knew that, so I put a pool into my property. But down the road, we don't know, once they put a pool in or if they decide to do a whole bunch of stuff, what the costs that they're going to pass on to the owners are. So it's a little bit scary to be in there, because I was thinking of buying more land in there originally. And so because of this uncertainty, it's a little bit harder. So the other thing I found here is building is very difficult in comparison to the market in Canada, and I've also talked to builders in the US as well. So here, when I started the build, it looked like it would be easy from what the realtors say. We handle everything, we have referrals for you, it's all seamless. Well, I've made 28 different payments through my build. So you have like quarterly payments, you have like, so for the pool, I had payments. For the seawall, I had payments. For this building, I had payments. Then I had payments for furniture the wood guy's doing, then the cushion guy. Like, it's tons and tons of work. So that's something that I didn't know. And there's no escrow, so you have to pay draw payments, right? Otherwise, you'd be, you know, paying someone too much money up front. One other thing I like about this market, it's a bad thing for most of the hotel owners here, is variable pricing isn't common. So that's what I noticed when I was doing research on Belize initially, is I would look at hotels and they would be like, high season is this rate, low season is this rate, and that's all they talked about. Whereas at home in Edmonton, I've had 80 to 90% occupancy throughout COVID all the time. And people say, how do you do that? And it's like, well, I use variable pricing. I mean, if it's cheap enough to a limit, you know, I don't do $30 a night, but I certainly have done $50 a night plus a cleaning fee. So it's a huge opportunity here to increase occupancy. And I've seen one place when we did the tour with the radio guys, Cocoa Beach, the sales agent said that was one of his selling features, is that we're the only, well, actually he said, we're the only people on the island that do variable pricing. And of course, he was probably not thinking that the Hilton obviously does variable pricing as well. So right now to stay at Mahogany Bay, it's way cheaper than it normally would be when tourism is up. And so that's a huge opportunity here if you know what you're doing, and nobody else does it. So you can see a lot of houses that are totally vacant, but they're still charging 300 and some a night, when wouldn't it be better to get someone in for 100 a night or whatever, as long as you're covering your costs. So the other thing is there's a lot of really high-end property and a lot of really low-end property, but really missing the middle. So quality product at affordable pricing. So you can easily find condos for $1 million. You can find really nice accommodation for $700 a night. I've met a lot of couples that are coming here, like 12 people, and they rent a really nice big house in the south, which is kind of where I was like, south, I've never been south. And so that was the first people I talked to that they said they're renting an Airbnb far south, which had a private chef and had all these bedrooms for all of them. And I was like, I need to drive south and see what's out there. So that's kind of how I found the south, was these people that said they were staying there. I thought, oh, I better drive south of Mahogany Bay and see what's there, because none of the realtors ever talked about it. I just thought it was probably nothing there to see. And then what I realized when I took the drive is the power lines go all the way south. And the reason for that is there's luxury condos at the end of the island. It's called La Serene, and it's a project that kind of, it was a Ponzi scheme, had lots of issues. A bank went bankrupt as a result, but it is back on, I guess a new bank has taken over. Those should come into play at some point. And the good thing about that is that the power lines are there because of those condos being developed. And eventually the road should also be paved all the way down because of those condos, because no one's paying $1 million for a condo and driving on a bumpy road. And so once those are finished, and we don't know when that'll be, but that is a kind of a good thing. And the other thing, like I asked Robert, I said, well, if you were picking to live here, would you live south or north? And he said, I would pick south for sure. I just wish the road would be paved. And the reason really is that if you're living in the Secret Beach area, which is very affordable, it's 45 minutes to get into town. Whereas on the south, it's 15 to 20 minutes. So that's a huge difference in terms of timing. So that's kind of why I picked south, even though you won't hear about it in any videos. The range of prices I found on the south side, they have studio condos for $175. It's a product called Salt Life, and they have 50 acres of land on the lagoon side south, where they've already started these nice condos, but they're, you know, at an affordable price point. And then they have other product on the south that's like $900,000 for single family homes. So the $900,000 product, their houses like 2,000 square foot houses, and it's a whole community kind of on the beachfront. And so it's around the same area. So the lots that I found, I actually had went to a area of the south where I met a lady from Vancouver who had started a boutique adult resort. And I also met a lady who had built a couple tiny homes. And I said, oh, who owns all this land? And how did you buy it? So Julie said, well, we bought it from Monty, and his family owns all the land down south. And so then I met with Monty, and that's how I found this. So he's like, here's all the land I have. He took me for a tour south, showed me, here's what I have, here's what my brother has, here's what my nieces and nephews have, etc. So this 7-lot purchase deal, it's 2 oceanfront, so these are the 2 oceanfront lots right here in the picture. There's these 2 really long lots, and then there's 3 lots right here. And there is one on the corner here that he already sold for $55,000 to somebody that's on his, I think it's one of his project managers or some person that he's done work with. And Monty's from Texas, just in case that matters. But anyway, his family had all this land. So he said he was selling this for $550, 10% down. And normally when I talk to different people about Monty, just to see, because I have to ask questions about anyone before I deal with them now, because you got to find out, are these people, you know, are they honest? Are they telling you what, you know, how it is? So what I had heard from Robert is he said Monty does 10, 10, 10 deals. So 10 years, 10%, and you know, everything. So 10% down, 10-year financing, 10% interest. But the interesting thing is he had, now when I talked to the realtor that Monty works with, he said 8%. So I said, well, I'd rather pay 6%. So he asked Monty, and Monty said, yeah, I can do 6%. Because of COVID, of course, they're not doing as well. So 6% was okay. And the banks here tend to charge 10 to 12% if you can even get a loan. So it's quite different. And then I did look for comparable properties, which was hard because you have to look on tons of different websites. So these 4, coincidentally, are also listed by a different realtor called Sunrise Realty. And these 4 are listed at $425. So 2 beachfront and 2 here. And so you could also buy just the 2 here. They said for, I think it was $225, or these 2 for $225, or all 4 for $425. So it kind of shows you, I guess, some comparables that are like right next to it in terms of the pricing. So we could get 7 lots for $550 versus 4 for $425. And these lots here, they do have a pier license, which is kind of a benefit. It's a pier that would have to be replaced. It's very old, and these land parcels aren't cleared either, where these ones are much better. And this lot right here, actually somebody's filled it and put a concrete seawall already in place. And then these ones have a wood seawall, so that would need to be replaced with concrete as well, because wood obviously just deteriorates a lot. So that's the property. And so looking at kind of what's the price that these would sell individually. So Monty told me the oceanfront would sell at about $225. I would say more conservatively $175 given the location. I did see listings at $225, but anyway, I just put some examples just to kind of see what, if we wanted to sell all the land. I know he sold one of those small lots for $55,000, so conservative, probably $665. If we look more at what listings are right now in the marketplace, more like $825. So that's kind of why we think the $550 is such a good deal. Other thing to note though, whenever you buy property in Belize, or whether it's land or whether you have a building on it, you do pay a stamp tax of 8%. And you have a choice when you're financing where you can pay it up front, or you could wait until you pay it off and pay it at the end. But if you wait till you build on it, you're going to pay stamp tax on the value of the property with the buildings on it versus if you pay it on vacant land. So one thing you can do when you have an agreement to buy something is you can actually finance, register the agreement right on the title of the property so that you pay the stamp tax potentially initially. If you're able to do that, that would be the better way to go. And the realtor said you can sometimes pay it in advance. Seems weird to want to pay it early, but obviously in this case, it would be cheaper to do so. So I talked to the builder I'm using already, because I have a great builder in Mahogany Bay and a project manager as well that's really good. So she gave me a price estimate for a duplex, 2-bedroom up, 2-bedroom down. And she gave me the price without all the connections, because the connections depend on how far the lot is, that kind of thing. So I did some estimates here for what the water cost would be, connecting the electric. You could put power lines, or you could trench and put it underground, what the septic system would cost, and then appliances, put a contingency in because you always need to do that. Allocated some furniture in, so said, okay, our costs per unit could be about $385. If we marked it up 20%, base price for each building would be about $462. So then what I did is I said, okay, what would be our selling price if our land value based on listings, if we took those values at the $825 for each one, put buildings on them, and we could be flexible with the buildings. This is just for the example. Someone might want to build a 3-bedroom. They might want 2 tiny homes. The lots could fit more than 1 unit on each property if people want to do that as well. So each parcel of land in this 7 is larger than my land in Mahogany Bay. And in Mahogany Bay, I can put 3 tiny homes on a lot. So just to give you a perspective on what you could build 3 units, you could build 2, you can build 1, you could do it with a courtyard, lots of different options. So then the total selling price, oceanfront obviously being more expensive, the 2nd row and then the 3rd row. That's the price per square footage. And the reason I did that is that a lot of builders here quote on price per square foot, a little different than they don't do that in Canada and the US. So Las Brisas is one of the condos one of the developments in the south, and they say the cost including land is about $350 to $450 per square foot. And those are the really big houses. They start at about 2,000 square feet for 1 unit. So looking at our price where we're doing the markup of 20%, we're in a pretty good line with what they are, being that they have bigger houses. Obviously their cost per square foot would be a little bit less, but $350 to $450, we're only at $476 for oceanfront. So we're doing pretty well with those prices. So then we did a profit analysis and estimated where if we sold all of those units, what's the cost of the building, the land, the stamp tax, legal fees, an advertising budget because we don't think we'd need to use realtors because we have enough connections that these could sell probably fairly easily. We could forecast that we'd hope to make about 739 on this budget, where investor doing a 50-50 split with the operations, it would be about 400,000 each. And then I analyzed that maybe we could, who knows, it might take 2 years to sell, and we would obviously can adjust these spreadsheets anytime. This was just an example of the land payments for year 1 and 2 with the down payment, and then they take payments every quarter where you wire transfer about 16,000 each quarter. So those would be the payments. And then the building cost, so the investment return then would be about 10.8%. And then if we finance the units, obviously when we sell to people, we can charge easily 8% financing and make that as a return as well. So that is kind of the best, I guess that's what kind of everyone says is the best, because you can't get financing from a bank. You can often get financing for land, but you can't for a building. And even there are some condos that you can buy with financing through a bank, but it's only for 5 years and there's a balloon payment at the end, and then you have to renegotiate it, and then you'll be in the 10 to 12%. So we kind of did a budget where we charge 8%, and then we put it into a rental budget example, just so that if someone was saying, hey, I might want to live in it, but I might also want to rent it out when I'm not there, or maybe I just want it as a vacation rental. So I did this budget here for the duplex. And what I did is I put twice the rent of a keeping suite in the Hilton. And those are basically like a hotel room with a little kitchenette with 2 beds side by side in 1 room. Ours would be 2 full bedrooms, so obviously a little better. And I didn't include their resort fees either, because they also obviously have amenities for that. And then I put in the price that we would cost to build with the land, non-ocean front, just for the example here. Did the budget based on a template that Robert Helms gave in the Real Estate Guys radio tour, just because he has a lot more costs in here than, I don't think we would have 15% guest acquisition. Airbnb's 3%, to give you an idea, but booking.com is 15%. Maybe even 20%, and Verbo is about 8%. So they're all different. So it just depends if you're using the, highest, but better to be, I'm an accountant, so I'm always trying to be, worst case scenario in my budgets. Occupancy rate here, 61%. I did look at AirDNA, and in 2018 and 2019, if you're in one of the best 75% of the properties, occupancy was more like 67, 68%. So obviously this is a high occupancy. When you're already having a brand, wouldn't happen initially. Obviously you have to get reviews, that kind of thing. But then this budget would give people a return of 9.0% annual ROI. And if we did financing, if we financed over 8 years, but amortized it over 30 years, they would have loan payments of about $3,000 a month. They would still cash flow about $930. So this is just sort of an example for somebody that was thinking, hey, I might want to do this as an Airbnb or vacation rental if I wanted to buy one of these units. And then I did another budget. This is like, okay, well, what if there is no vacation people coming in? What if COVID, like nobody wants to come at all? Well, you definitely could easily get $1,200 a month rent on both the units, the up and down. That would be quite simple to do. And then you take out some of the expenses, like you don't have any guest services, but let's presume we still have some common costs and a management fee that would be slightly less, and you don't have as much for guest acquisition because you just have advertising. So there the return, of course, is much lower, annual ROI of 3.06%, because obviously the rent's a lot lower. But if they were to finance, they still have negative here instead, because their per month amount for their net income is less. So they'd be out about $1,700 a year or a month if they decided to finance, which we know that if you're doing long-term rental here, this is why there are no long-term rentals, because it's not really profitable to do long-term rentals in the Belize marketplace. So pretty much everything here is short-term rental, except with COVID. Like right now I have an apartment, I'm paying 1-bedroom apartment, 7 years old, I'm paying $650 American to rent it. So the long-term rental rates can be pretty cheap, but 2 bedrooms are really, really hard to find. So I do have other resources you can look at too. I have done some videos, lessons learned in Belize, talking about some of the challenges I've had, and I put my email there in case you have any other questions as well. And that's kind of the end of the presentation, but go ahead with any questions you have now.
What are your thoughts on the US dollar? Because I assume that this is all US dollars.
It is.
Where do you see the US dollar currency exchange with Canadian? Because I got Canadian funds, I'd have to convert.
And that was my issue too. So when I did my budget to build in Mahogany Bay, I had budgeted 1.35. And luckily, the Canadian dollar's done really good. And now all my payments, because I'm making draw payments, I'm buying US dollars as I need them. And I'm paying about my best one I got was 1.24 something recently. So the good thing is you're getting rent in US dollars as well. So that's good. I mean, when you first pay up front, it's true you have to do the conversion. One thing to note as well, I work at a bank. I actually am an accountant at Service Credit Union, but there are companies that do, I don't know if you've ever dealt with anyone, but Knightsbridge is one company that gives you a guaranteed better rate than any bank. So I talked to my treasury department at Service and said, hey, I can get US dollars at this rate today. And they looked and they said, even with your employee rate, we can't even touch that. They said, I don't know how we do this. So if you need a little bit of US dollars, like a couple grand, I always deal with Knightsbridge. You just set up an account with them and then you pay out of your Canadian account. They deposit it into your US account. It's pretty seamless. And then one of my real estate connections in Edmonton said, hey, I have a better guy in Toronto that actually even gives a better rate than Knightsbridge. And he does, but he'll only do, you have to have at least 10,000 US. So the rates will be better than what you'll ever see when you're looking at the posted rate at a bank. So in terms of forecast, people are saying they expect the Canadian dollar keeps surpassing hurdles. I would say though, when you're budgeting, if you're trying to do it, I'd be conservative and still say, well, what if it's back at 1.35? Although right now, let's hope it stays at the 1.24, 1.25 for us now when we're making payments. And right now yesterday, I think, was the best the Canadian dollar was since 2018. So.
Yeah, I think it's 80 cents or 81 cents.
Yeah.
I have purchased in the past above 85 cents US dollars, and then as it drops, I converted back to Canadian.
Yeah.
So I do play a little bit of the currencies, and I don't see the US strengthening their currency in the next little while, 6 months to a year. I look at it and think that they have printed a lot of money. They have some policies in place, some corporate tax issues. And so I'm actively pursuing above 84, 85 cents. I'm going to start converting some Canadian to US. Mm-hmm. So that would be one of my hesitations, because I do think that if this is all in US dollars, then I'm losing out on that percentage difference. So that would be about 10%, 8% loss in currency exchange.
It would be, yes. And I guess it depends when you think the currency is going to change, because the thing with this is you're not paying everything up front. You pay 10% down on the land right off the bat, and then you make payments every quarter. So if it's going to change in 3 months, it would be at the lower rate potentially by then. And then it's quarterly payments on the land. And then for the build, it takes time to plan the project, and then you pay draw payments to the builder as well. So, it's true that if it goes down, you'll lose something on your initial payments, but over time, if it keeps going down, obviously you could benefit it as you're making the payments over time.
So do you own the land already? Did you buy it?
No, we have not bought it.
Okay. And I love this presentation, so thank you for that. And I like how you've put a spreadsheet together. It looks like you got experience on rentals. I haven't had very good experience with my rental properties.
Okay.
I'm too particular, I think, about my things, and renters kind of wrecked my house a bit multiple times that I rented out. So I ended up selling it, and I had it in Edmonton. One of the things I was looking for potentially is something that's already pre-existing and built and doesn't necessarily have to be a beachfront, but I have some people that are interested, some friends of mine, mm-hmm. that they would come in and we'd have it as a VRBO or Airbnb yep. kind of scenario. And the other thing we wanted to know is building it upon not necessarily building something, but having something that we could look at in existence, or something that is already built. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything like that?
Oh, well, I have my property in Mahogany Bay that will be finished next month, or okay. Yeah, probably by the end of well, end of May to be conservative, because he said the third week of May, and that was just pushed by a week. So that one, I was just talking to the realtor about if I was going to sell the whole thing, that I would probably sell it around the 400,000 price point, and it has a 225 square feet casita, which has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a little kitchenette, and then it'll have a pull-out couch in the living room, so could sleep 4 people. Then the bigger unit is 384 square feet with a loft where you can put a twin bed, has laundry, full kitchen, his and hers closets in the bedroom. It will have a workspace, like desks in the living room, with a sofa bed and not a sofa, no, a regular sofa, and then a sofa table behind it where you can fit 3 people. It has a seawall with a boat slip, and it has a pool as well. And it has the potential to build a 3rd unit down the road if you ever wanted to. I didn't have enough money to build the 3rd unit, but I did plan the lot, so you could put a 3rd little casita on there as well.
What about like tourism has been hit pretty hard worldwide in the last year, as we know, and one of the things that we were considering is maybe we buy a resort that's been distressed or potentially needing some investors. Is there anything like that?
There are lots like that here, yes. So again, it's hard to find which ones are available. Like, for example, I have a deal with the Hilton where there's a resale unit. You could buy 4 keeping suites, it's basically a 4-plex on 1 lot. And it has, the lower one has two beds in 1 room. And then the upstairs has a king bed. They have a screened-in porch, beautiful little units if you want a 4-plex. And the owner of those units is reselling them. So it would be in the Hilton rental pool. They do a 90-10 rental split right now. Usually they do 80-20. And then what they do with operating costs is they split them among all of the unit holders. So whatever their beach club and the pool cost is, they split it among everyone. They'll do whatever the cost was last year, that's what your costs are going to be that you're paying this year. Versus an HOA fee, you just pay whatever the costs of operating the resort were last year. And their rental management split is really good. And the reason for that is, well, number 1, when they build the units, they make money. And number 2, they own the restaurant and the coffee shop and things like that. And Robert Helms, the real estate guy, radio guy, he's one of the partners in the Hilton, actually. So his thing is, we don't want to keep building more Hilton units because we don't want to hurt our investors' returns. So that would be, I mean, if you want something, you know, with 4 units, for example, or even more, there might be other people that want to sell. He's also got units that are like a family cottage, 2.5 bedrooms with 2 little rental casitas on the front of it. Sometimes there's resales of those as well, but they're not building any new units right now in the Hilton. But then there are some, if you're looking, those are, I guess, more affordable because they're on the lagoon. If you want beachfront, you're looking probably over $1 million for any kind of resort there.
And I think that one other thing, Brent, like when I was down there, I met with Linda, and so I had the realtor take me very far north. and so there's a reason why we don't go north, because there's nothing there. But there are some boutique resorts, and if you were to go online, you're going to find quite a few for sale, whether it's in Ambergris Caye or on the mainland itself, especially in the more like jungle type resorts. The problem is, and this is something I really learned from Linda, is for most of these resorts, there's 0 for brand recognition. And so how does the consumer find this resort, and how are they rated compared to other resorts? And so right across from Mahogany Bay is a very well-known resort called Victoria House, but it's not a brand. So, you know, if I was looking online, I'd probably never find Victoria House, but it's an extremely high-end resort, and they're booked typically 2 years in advance. So if you're looking for an underperforming asset, just know that you're going to have to put a ton into marketing, because otherwise nobody knows who you are. And there's so many resorts that have been started and not finished, or just people didn't come in with enough money or enough know-how on the advertising marketing side in order to make a go of it.
Yeah, and one other thing too on the real estate guys tour, and if you could come to Belize and go on that tour, I'd highly recommend it. The next one I think is in September. He had the one I went to in January. He did another one in April because there's such high demand because so many people want to buy in Belize right now to get out of Canada and America. And then he's doing another one, I think it's in August. I'd have to look at his website, but he takes you to a whole bunch of the different resorts. And there's a new Best Western. You could buy in a Best Western, but the problem is it's right by the airport landing. So if you go there, there's a beautiful pool. I love their condos, but I mean, you can hear the airplanes as they're coming in. I was there for an hour just to look at it. And it's like, oh my God, all the airplanes coming in and out. I don't want to have that in one of my investments, but their condos are fairly affordable. And I've never been a condo investor, just saying that, but there was also the yacht club I stayed at when I first came. And so this behind me is the yacht club. That's my view from my balcony. Beautiful unit. I rented it for $1,000 US a month. And I talked to owners of that. It's beachfront, it has a pool, and they never made money on it at all. And I tried to figure out why. I was like, why is this so Nora Lee? She said, well, I owned both the up and the lower because that's how you buy them. She ended up subdividing, selling the lower unit and just keeping her upper one and not even renting it out. Because she's like, I never made money. I barely covered my costs. And I'm like, how is a beachfront condo not even, and it's not even an expensive one. You can buy the 2 units together for about $350,000-400,000 if it's not right on the ocean, but it's like part of the resort. And I think part of the issue is brand recognition, like Andrea said. And then the second thing is they don't do variable pricing. So I talked to the project manager, Beth, and I said, how come, or the property manager, and said, how come you're not doing variable pricing? Like there's software, it's very easy to do. And she said, I'd have to get all the owners to agree. And if you can't get all the owners to agree, you can't do it. And then most of the resorts here, a lot of them, they sell like the Hilton did. So Grand Caribe is a beautiful resort north. I'd love to stay there. Really nice condos, really nice pool, and then a really nice beach. But the condos are about $500,000 for one condo unit. And one of the investors, because it was an investor tour, asked the question of the salesperson, how much does this $500,000 condo make in a year? And the guy said, oh, about $7,000. So their return on $500,000 was $7,000 in the year. And everyone asked, well, why? Like, how come it's so low? And this is like, that's one of the only hotels I found when I looked at WestJet Vacations that they had a package deal with. So I thought this is a fairly good marketed hotel, very nice. And what Robert said, his advice was that the problem there is the HOA is who manages the vacation rentals. And so that's where the problem is. They're not experts in property management. They don't really they just don't manage it correctly is what he said. So I don't know if that's really the issue, but making $7,000 on a $500,000 investment. I mean, even I saw MGM condos in Vegas that performed better than that when I was looking in Vegas to buy. So it's pretty crazy.
What would be the property taxes on a build out beachfront as what we're kind of interested in?
Property taxes are next to nothing here. So my Mahogany Bay, I just paid my property tax. It was 213 Belize dollars, so 100 and something American.
Oh, wow, that's pretty reasonable.
Yes, very reasonable. So property tax, I mean, that's why the roads are bad. So keep in mind, you don't have as many amenities here because the property taxes are low.
Okay.
So yeah, in terms of holding costs, utilities are one of the most expensive. So one thing that is good about what the Hilton does, and I had to figure out why they did this, is they're like, oh, we're going to take you to your room and show you your room. And I'm like, why? Just give me the key and I'll go in. And then Robert explained why they did that in the session, because I didn't understand. Why do you want to waste staff going into the room? Well, they explained to people how to use the AC. Like, look, we're just going to turn it on right now. And if you do it right now, it cools the room down fast. So don't leave it on yourself, right? So trying to educate the guest on when not to use it. So we're in a 1-bedroom apartment right now. We run our AC I'm working from home, run it at about 26 or 27 degrees. So not very cold. And our electricity bill, I just got it, it's about 250 Belize a month. So from our perspective in Canada, it's not expensive, but compared to what it should be, considering you're not heating, it is very expensive.
2,000 square foot property or house is what you are suggesting to build for around $460 a square foot, correct?
Well, the one we're looking at is only about 1,400 square foot for the 2-bedroom main and the 2-bedroom up. So that's the 460 price. So pricing here is way more expensive than you'd expect. And I've been trying to figure out why that is. And that's one thing Andrea commented when she came too. She's like, how come building costs are more expensive here than they are in Canada? And there's 2 reasons. One is all the pre-treated lumber they have to get from the US. So there's first of all, they have to import it from the US, they have to pay duty, and then they have to barge it to the island. And the same thing goes for any, like the hardware store. I'm friends with the guy, there's a hardware store right across the street, and he imports everything from Miami. So there's a lot of duty they pay. Some electronics you buy, it's like a 50% duty on whatever you buy in the US. So ideally, you use stuff here when you're building if you can. So my furniture that I'm getting manufactured by a guy in San Pedro just because it's way cheaper than trying to import it in, pay the shipping, and then also the duty that comes with it.
Is there any solar, renewable, wind, or energies that could be offsetting the costs?
Solar panels are extremely expensive. So I just asked my project manager about that. So because the property we're looking at doesn't have, it doesn't have septic and sewer, and it has power lines on the road, but you have to connect them yourself. I was like, well, what about solar? And he's like, well, I'm building a house in Secret Beach right now. And I think it was about a 2,000 square foot house. No, it was 750 and 750. 750 on the main, 750 above. And he said for the solar panels, because they wanted ACs in every bedroom, it was $80,000 extra for the solar panels. So yes, you could do it, but it's extremely expensive.
$80,000 at $150 a month in electricity bill, you're looking at a 20 or 30-year return on that.
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. But in Secret Beach, you don't have a choice because they don't have power. And that's why I'm not looking north as well. So I actually bought a lot in Secret Beach just for a holding perspective because the lot was 30,000. But now I'm like, I don't know how long it's going to take for utilities to get there. So I'm actually trying to roll it into my property at Mahogany Bay and just whatever I paid for that, just put it into the land here instead. Because I mean, Mahogany Bay, it only takes about 6 months to build. So just so you know, I bought the land in September, started building in December, and it'll be finished in May. But mind you, they're small houses, right? And they're doing the pool, they put the boat slip, everything.
So you're going to live in that because you're renting right now, so you're going to be moving into that?
No, I was never planning to live in it, and I had thought maybe, so I bought it before I even came here. And so what I said was, you know, I know it's a good investment because Mahogany Bay is a gated community. I've kind of noticed here too when I meet tourists, and I meet tourists every weekend, a lot of them stay at Mahogany Bay. Like it is one of the most popular places people stay because it is a brand, right? And so when I bought it, I was like, well, it's very expensive to stay there. Why would I even stay there when I come? I could go stay on the mainland for way cheaper and just rent my place out. Now, if my place isn't booked, would I stay in it? Absolutely. But would I want to? Maybe not. And then I have a friend that's a lawyer that lives in the same community I live in, who's been living here for 7 years, and he works remotely in his law practice in America. And he said to me, he's like, why did you, like, you wouldn't fit into Mahogany Bay? And I'm like, what? And he's like, you're not that kind of person. And it's kind of the kind of people that live there are kind of the more, I don't know what he'd say, more stuffy. They don't want to integrate with the locals. They don't want to, like, it's a separate expat community kind of thing, which I like it with the tourists, but the people that live there, it's kind of the whole, like, I had one guy that lives moving into the house across the street from my house, and he's like, oh, those must be rentals. No one would live in those. And so it was like, oh, you obviously don't understand the tiny home movement, but he's very wealthy. He paid cash for 2 lots and is building a massive compound for all his family, himself, his divorced parents, each have their own house. So anyway, it's just the perspective there. It's going to be a little bit of a different mindset than what I have in terms of, I'd rather be, I mean, and in the south side, it's, they have police, it says patrolled by police on every mile marker in the south, and all the buildings you can see people have tennis courts, and it's where all the wealthy people live, but they don't have to pay any HOA fees. They don't have to pay any, resort fees, anything like that. So that's, I think, one of the advantages of buying south in comparison to Mahogany Bay. But the other thing about Mahogany Bay, if you buy with the Hilton, you have the brand recognition, but with what I built, they have not figured out property management yet. So it's something they're still working on.
What is the rental market down there like? Is it mostly expats and everybody else owns their property and has their own home? Is it condos that are rentals, or is it homes as well?
It's both. So there's tons and tons of condos that are rented, and a lot of the condos, like there's, I mean, like when there's like condo after condo after condo. So you could buy, but a lot of them are resort condos. So think of the MGM in Vegas where you buy a unit, but it's in their rental pool. That's the majority of property here. So you could buy at Captain Morgan's Resort. You could buy at, there's a new Marriott going in. There's, well, actually 2 new Marriotts going in. There's the Best Western. So you buy one unit and it's part of the Best Western pool. But those ones, if you buy in, say, the Best Western or you buy in the Marriott, you can only stay in your unit 6 weeks. The Hilton, actually, he said when the Hilton came in that, nope, people, I already told them they can live in it, so there's no restriction if you want to live in your house there, which is a bit different in the Hilton one. But most of them, if you buy, depending on where you buy, you have to check if you want to stay for a month or 2, can you do it? And the single family homes, I should say I didn't answer that part of the question. The Hilton probably is a good example of a lot of them being single family homes or just fourplexes versus condos. But Victoria House that Andrea talked about, they're individual units and they have the highest occupancy rate on the island. So it's because they're well known, they have really nice landscaping, they're far apart, but they're individual units. And there are some individual owners that own individual houses in there as well.
Just curious, how's the food?
The food is amazing. Andrea, I don't know how much food you had while you were here, but it's really good.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So it depends what you like. I'm trying to think of what our favorite restaurants. We go to a place called Blue Water Grill all the time. It's right on the beach. It has really good different food. They have really good pizza there, which my boyfriend gets a lot, but where else do we go? There's Victoria House has amazing food. It's very expensive, but when we meet tourists, we'll often say, let's go to Victoria House for dinner just because it is an experience and it's really nice and they have a really good chocolate lava cake type dessert with ice cream. So we go there just for that. There's Hidden Treasures, which is really good. Tonight we're going out with some people that just came back into town that bought land a little while ago. So they're back in town. So they're like, hey, let's meet for dinner. And I'm like, I want to try El Fagon because I've never went there. I don't know if you ate there, Andrea? Or no, so El Fagon and Elvies are 2 places that I haven't eaten at that people always say are amazing. But then there's some places, like there's one we went on with Robert's tour that he booked it, and it's like a guy that owns the restaurant himself. He is the waiter, the cook, and the owner. He does everything, and we had 18 people at his restaurant one night, and it's amazing food and very affordable. So there's little hole-in-the-wall places that are like amazing. So lots of fresh seafood, lobster when it's in season if you like seafood, and lots of chicken.
I would say too, Brent, like for people, when you're staying in Mahogany Bay Village, what's nice about that is they do have some restaurants there, but you're paying just as much as you would here, if
or
not
even
a little
more.
bit more. You're definitely staying at a resort and you're definitely paying resort pricing. Whereas if you go 2 minutes down the road to something a restaurant that's not in a resort, it's way cheaper and it's just as good.
Yeah, so the Hilton restaurant is in US dollar pricing, which you have to, when I looked at it first, I'm like, oh, this dinner's $40. And I'm like, oh, that's US dollars. If it was Belize, it would have been $20 American. So yeah, I don't eat at the Hilton very often at all. There's some little stands in the Hilton, in the community, that are owned by different people. So there's a hot dog stand and I get a smoky and it's $10 Belize. So $5 American for a really big smoky. So not too bad. So when I go in there, that's what I might get if I need to get something because I'm having meetings in there or that kind of thing. But other than that, yeah, I go across. There's a new place, Andrea, that opened since you've not been here called Toast, which is right across from Mahogany Bay, right by South Beach and Pirates. And it's owned by the guy that owns a lot of the little, like the hot dog stand and the chicken coop in Mahogany Bay. So he just opened up and he has live music. If you like live music, Brent, you can have it almost every night on the island.
What about cruise ships? I know they're not up and running it right now, but is there a port able to handle deep water cruise ships?
The cruise ships, when they come to Belize, they go to the mainland and not the island. The island, everything's way too shallow for a cruise to go. So everybody that takes a cruise and stops in Belize there, I'm not actually sure where it actually is. It's closer to Placencia, I think. Andrea, do you know where the cruises stop?
No, I don't.
But I know you do mainland tours, like you can go zip lining and you can do all those kind of things when you get off the cruise.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is very interesting. Would you be able to send me a copy of this presentation or no?
Of course I can.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
And you had mentioned the Property Guys podcast, and they're doing investor tours or something. Is that correct?
They are. And one thing so if you go into this page has all my videos, maybe I'm going to click on this link and see if it'll share with you. It probably won't, I'm sure, because it went onto my other monitor.
Yeah, essentially, like this gentleman who has the this radio show, he's a huge influencer on the island, and
Huge.
so he's been there many, many times. He owns different properties there, and he's kind of taken Linda under his wing and has been personally mentoring her without her having to pay, just because she's shown such initiative and in moving forward, because usually he's in the US, but when Robert's there, he makes a point of spending time with Linda, which I'm sure
been very appreciative. It's like, I even asked him, I'm like, I have a few investors here, can you meet? And he's like, sure. And I'm like, oh my God. So he booked a boardroom in the Hilton. And I mean, he's actually here today. He's coming back in tonight. So we'll chat a bit more, because he does the other opportunities, something that I don't have at all solidified yet, but there is land right outside of Mahogany Bay that Robert owns, and he wants to do workforce housing, which I have no idea what the ROI on that would be, but there is no affordable housing for a lot of his staff that he hires, like boat in from the mainland and then come to work every day. So it's pretty crazy. So he has a 72 unit apartment building he wants to build for people, or he wants someone to build. So I'm sure he's done an analysis on pro formas on that, but he already owns land for that. But he says there's lots of land there too, but it's in a really shady area. I took a drive through there the other day and I'm like, ooh, you really need to, I don't know, gate this somehow and put it in with Mahogany Bay before I'd be interested. But land there is pretty affordable as well. And it's still, I mean, close to Mahogany Bay and South Beach, which is pretty nice. So if you want to look at my tiny home, so I think you can see my website here.
Yep.
So this is my Belize tiny home update. So this is the Mahogany Bay, just right by the Great House, where you take a boat to get to the beach club. But I also show the tiny homes there. And then I have the lessons learned about investing in Belize, and then I have part 2, and then I have some other things. But this is the first video I did on international investing, and this is about an hour long. It was through one of my Edmonton real estate groups, so I wouldn't say to go look at that, but these 3 videos here, they're just short videos. I'd say watch those for sure.
Great. What about insurance down there? I assume that there's hurricanes and maybe some damage and insurance claims.
Yep.
How costly is insurance? Do you have insurance on your property?
Well, not yet because they're not built, but yes, you can get insurance. And for a wood house, it's about 3%. And I've heard concrete is less, but I haven't confirmed that yet because I haven't built a concrete house.
Is there a concern with building wood for hurricane seasons?
Well, the Hilton built all in wood, and I was like, if they did it, I guess I can do it. I don't know that I would do it on the beach side though, because the thing about Belize that's interesting is they have the barrier reef, so that does protect them a little bit, so they don't get as much hurricane, but they do definitely get some storms. Like last year, there was a lot of rain, but no hurricanes come here. So I think the chance of a hurricane here is like 1/3 the chance of hitting Florida or something. 17%. My boyfriend's just like, I remember the stat Robert gave. So 17% chance here versus 68% in Florida or something like that. So it's way less. And because I'm on the lagoon side, even less of a chance, right? Because it's on the other side. And so where the beach is, personally, I don't like beachfront land in Ambergris Caye. Like the lots we're looking at, everybody wants oceanfront, and it's true they do. For me, I don't want to be on the oceanfront. If I was saying I want to build and live in one of these, I'd pick the 3rd row lot on the road or the second row. And the reason is there's two things. One is on the beach, there is a lot of sargassum, so you do have to rake that. When we've been to this land, we haven't seen any because the water or the land seems high enough where it hasn't got onto the beach. So that's good. And we've driven by about 3 times and it hasn't been. But if you're in town right now, walking through, the sargassum is terrible on a lot of the beach. And the other thing is the wind. So there's like a breeze, like we go for dinner quite a bit on the beachfront. And I mean, if they don't put the wind things up, it is really, really windy. Compared to Mahogany Bay, sometimes it's windy, but it's not near as bad as, say, the ocean front. So that just depends on what you like. I mean, I went to another place called Tarpon Bay, which is on the lagoon, and it's really, really windy, but they have good windshields on their upper bar area where, you know, it's manageable. So there's different advantages, I guess, to each place.
Right, okay. The insurance you talked about, I mean, this has been a great introduction. I'm just curious why you picked Belize over. Are you going to talk about where you looked internationally? Costa Rica was another area that we were kind of interested in.
Yeah. Well, I've been to Costa Rica quite a bit, and I've been to Mexico quite a bit, and I had never been to Belize, so that was an interesting thing. So Mexico and Costa Rica they don't have British common law, so I was very concerned about the squatters' rights. That was one of the things I was concerned about. And the other thing I did, and this is going to sound terrible, and I even hate sharing that I did this, but I have an international living subscription, so I watch all their articles about different places. But what I did is I went into Robert's website. I don't know if you'll be able to see if I open up the real estate guys.
Yeah.
Whoops. And so just to give you an idea of how I picked Belize, this is going to seem like kind of silly, but since these guys are investor focused, they're not selling real estate. That's a big thing for me, because if you're, you know, talking to someone selling real estate, obviously they're going to have a perspective. So they've been broadcasting, like it says, since 1997, but in here they have different markets. And my internet's being really slow right now, probably because I'm on a Zoom call. So if you click on markets, there's usually a menu. Did they just change their website? I think they've changed. Oh, it's just they did change the way it looks at. So anyway, they show you different markets like agricultural, Boise, alternative lending, apartments. Anyway, they have a lot on Belize, and like Andrea said, Robert's been investing in Belize, I think, for over 20 years. So when I looked at international places that they talk about here, and I can't see it because it's not on, oh, here it is, the drop down. So when I looked here, I went, where do they think is a good place to invest? And in terms of international markets, they have Belize, they have, if I can keep scrolling, Panama and Paraguay. So I went and looked at all 3 of those because I was like, these guys do a lot of work themselves. Why am I going to reinvent the wheel? So Robert used to develop in Cabo a long time ago. So one of the podcasts I listened to here, he said buying in Belize is like buying in Cabo 30 years ago kind of thing, right? So he puts in the markets where he thinks people can make money. And so then what I looked at is, okay, Panama is fairly accessible for us in Canada, and so is Belize. And then I looked at Paraguay, and they were talking more about different types of investing, not like single family homes, like what I had money to do. They were talking, I think, about agricultural, something like that. So Panama, I looked, and it was always 2 stops. Belize was 1 stop, and that's how I ended up looking at Belize, was literally by looking here. And I thought, okay, I'm going to look at everything I can find about Belize, buy the books, go there, see if I like it. And then, you know, and Panama just is farther away. So Panama would have been my second choice, I think, to look at if I had not liked Belize as much as I do.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I do have a 5 o'clock I'm a little late for.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you so much, Linda and Andrea, for setting this up, and look forward to the presentation and getting a little more deeper into the information that you passed.
Sure, and then go ahead and look at the real estate guys. I talk about them a lot in my videos too, and then you can see when the sessions they have are coming up. They have a June session, which is a 10-day investing thing, and it's at Mahogany Bay in June, so I'll be attending that. And Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki is going to be speaking at it, so that'll be kind of cool.
Oh, right on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
It's
Brent.
a pleasure getting to see you guys face to face and get to meet you, Linda. Thank you so much,
too.
Andrea.
You're welcome. Have a great evening.
Okay, take care.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.